physical media has made a comeback in recent years, with some people wanting the simplicity that a DVD gave. While streaming services provide a plethora of options, the quality at which you watch them depends entirely on your connection to the internet. Then there's also the whole ordeal of movies jumping from one streaming service to another, which is a headache. And then there's also the endless scrolling that makes your whole decision-making process of what to watch even more difficult. It has made picking a movie lose some of its magic. It feels less special and personal. I think a big thing of that is that you lose those extras that come with a DVD or a physical release. Sometimes people who, when they watch a movie, want to see how it's made and pour through the plethora of special features, bonus content, cut scenes that come with a DVD. It's just cool to see how things are made and to see all the little bits that you don't typically see in what is provided on a streaming service. Most big production companies have abandoned DVDs as a market and have kind of made very slapdash releases, skipping on this extensive content and details. But companies have filled that void for them. Things like Criterion, Arrow Video, and Shout Factory have gained notoriety for their ability to make a DVD feel special again, bringing films that would be otherwise lost to time and degrading into a modern audience and into a modern release. Especially for those companies doing it for stuff that is less mainstream and appeals to more niche audiences, but is still entirely deserving of that modernization treatment. If you want to see a good example of what I'm talking about, just look at what Criterion did for Edward Yang's 1991 masterpiece, A Brighter Summer Day. They essentially cleaned the whole 4 hours of that movie and made it look brand new, except for one sequence, but come on, I'll forgive them for that. And it is seriously one of the best looking films I've ever seen. Criterion and all these distributors put in the effort to preserve these films and provided extensive information on how they were made in the process, and I can't thank them enough for doing so. That being said, they haven't gotten to everything. I mean, who can? You know, movies are made every single day, and there's only so much one person can do. It would take them forever to do so. Not only that, but it also takes an endless amount of resources to try and preserve it all. So today, I'm just gonna give a few of my picks on things that I would like to see preserved and made available into the United States to purchase or at least be restored in some form. Some of these I've watched, some of them I haven't, but all of these I want restored or made available. Some of them, you know, you can find through the 7 Seas. So in no order, here are 10 movies I want to see brought back and re-released. I feel like this one's a no-brainer. Hideaki Anno is a household name for fans of anime, but I think his live-action work is criminally underappreciated. That's because most of it isn't available in Western countries. I mean, his most recent Godzilla film and his Kamen Rider movie are, but everything else is a little hard to find. Especially these two I'm talking about, Love and Pop and Ritual. After making the end of Evangelion, he made these 2 live-action movies. Both incorporate extensive use of home video cameras and early digital camera work. This is the type of stuff that has gained notoriety in recent years, especially for my generation who are trying to get that 90s to 2000s feel. Both films take on a lot of Anno's experimental style and bring them into live action, working with unconventional narrative structures and strange camera work. From how both of these movies look and come off in the trailers that exist online, they seem incredible. I need to watch them, and I would love to see them make a physical release or have some international theater re-release. I know that Love and Pop got re-release in New York with a 2K restoration, so there is some hope for that happening. I'm just hoping that somehow this makes its way to my shelf, or at least a theater near me. Oh hey, it's one of the people who starred in Ritual, Shunji Iwai. Shunji Iwai is a director in his own right, and has blown up over his most famous work, All About Lily Shushu, and is partially responsible for this newfound interest in films that use early digital cameras. He has a very dreamy and romantic look to his work that I crave to see more of. In Lily Shushu, we are shown it in a very dark and dramatic story. I love that movie in spite of how difficult its subject matter is. But his films, at least from what I've been able to see of what's available, are beautiful and lighthearted than Le Shushu may lead someone to believe. For this entry, I'm just gonna say all of his films, because a lot of them have no wide release at all. Even with recent festival appearances of stuff like Love Letter, there's no word of a physical release for stuff, or of any of it getting on streaming. The most confusing part of Iwai's films not being released in the West is what is available and what isn't. Like, why is the prequel to Hannah and Alice available, but not the original? I mean, the prequel's good, but I'd like to watch the original somehow. I just don't understand. Anyways, re-release this shit now! I'm begging you. As much as I would love to make this video entirely about Japanese films that I would like to get re-released, I have a ton more shit from around the world I'd like to get to. So I'll start with something American. And when I think of an American, I imagine a man soaked in gin and old cigarettes, someone full of weird, cryptic tales, someone like Tom Waits. Yes, I'm talking about Tom Waits, and in particular his live album / concert film, Big Time, which I think is an under-discussed part of his discography, especially considering the fact that it was made in the middle of his I lost my antipsychotics era that was his 80s. His dark, husky voice was no longer crooning, but instead bleeding out woe, debauchery, and alcohol. Watching him perform this material in his prime is intense, and it really captures the raw energy he brought. From what I remember of watching it, it is incredible and elaborate with how he works all these physical props into his act and has these dynamic sets while he's singing. That being said, finding it on a streaming service now in high quality is a bit of a nightmare. The quality that I originally watched it on, which was on a streaming service, was abysmal, and while others have it now in slightly higher quality, it's not like HD or anything. I think it's still like 480p. Feel free to correct me, by the way. And that's probably not helped by the fact that Tom Waits is very fickle with his stuff being on streaming. Over the past few years, he's pulled Rain Dogs on and off streaming multiple times. Are you trying to get me to use my bootleg piss yellow copy of Rain Dogs? I'd love to see Big Time get a physical re-release with a modern HD restoration, because I don't want to lose this performance. I'd like to see it get the treatment that something like Talking Heads' Stop Making Sense got, or even more recently, Pink Floyd's Live at Pompeii. Just anything will do, because I know it won't do well in theaters, but I think it deserves some upgrade at least.
Oh, Frankie! Hey!
Okay, so this entry is just going to be me venting, because this is related to a video I'm working on that will be hopefully out in the near future. Nicholas Winding Refn's Bleeder, which is his second film, and for some reason, it is just hard to find online. Even sailing the 7 seas for this one has led to some rough waters. It's just a giant pain in the ass to find a good rip of it in the US. And the only versions available online are a Region 2 DVD from France, and I don't want that. Refn's Danish films have gotten their flowers in recent years, especially his Pusher trilogy, that take a hyper-realistic approach to showing the life of a criminal. So, it makes sense that Bleeder, another film in that same style, should get remastered or just re-released in America alongside the Pusher films. I know the remaster exists somewhere. There's some high-quality footage of it on YouTube. So please, it would just make video making a lot easier. Before making the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and embarrassing himself with the Hobbit trilogy, Peter Jackson started his career making gory, absurdist horror films. First with his film debut, Bad Taste, then with Meet the Feebles, and finally with Brain Dead, or Dead Alive, a film that is widely known for being over the top and gory, yet somehow eludes being released on streaming, or being available anywhere in the US. There's supposedly a remaster in the works, but who knows for this one. I mean, Bad Taste is the only one out of these 3 that has any legal means of streaming, but it doesn't have a physical release. So, my idea for all 3 of these movies, with their current state of release, is that they should release them as a box set and call it Peter Jackson, the early years. I mean, they're very similar in tone and style from what I gather, so it kind of makes sense to do it that way. I mean, Brain Dead is the most famous out of these three, and it could probably get its own release. How much is surrounding that one? But I'd like to see the other two films get some love as well, since that part of his career is so different than what he is known for now, that it's just so bizarre to look back on. I feel the need to at least mention one Hong Kong filmmaker in this video, since most of their catalog is finally coming to the 21st century, especially the early films of John Woo, which outside of Criterion's Laserdisc run and a DVD run, hasn't been seen in high quality in a long time. This news of his stuff getting released is part of the reason why I'm making this video right now. I mean, those movies were my number one on my list to get re-released, and it's finally happening. But now, I want to spotlight another film from that era that I think gets lost in the discussion around Hong Kong cinema, Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. No, I'm not talking about the Spielberg alien invasion movie. I'm talking about the off-the-wall, insane, coming-of-age exploitation film, Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind, not Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which just so happens to be hard to find due to its controversial nature and explicit violence. So why not ride the resurgence of Hong Kong cinema and expose this film to a new generation of film obsessives who live and die by that scene of cinema.
He's full of the best intentions. He's pure and gentle.
You're making me cry.
Wim Wenders showed his mastery in 2023 with Perfect Days, a film that is quiet, introspective, and life-affirming, despite its mundane approach to storytelling, proving that over 53 years of filmmaking, he is still capable of producing masterpieces. However, one of his most famous films, Wings of Desire, produced a sequel that day is hard to find. So close. Faraway, which at this point is more known for the U2 song in the soundtrack than anything involved with the movie, which is kind of sad. While it may be entirely unnecessary considering the conclusion of Wings of Desire, I am sort of fascinated by what direction Wenders could have taken for its sequel. It's an interesting concept to imagine. It might answer several interesting questions and see how that actually plays out. How would an angel like Bruno adjust to living among humans? What happened with his relationship with Marion? And more importantly, what could be gained from studying these characters further? All of these are very valid things I feel about So Close, Far Away, which I hope they may address in some way. I recognize that it may not be as good as Wings of Desire. It would be at least interesting to seek out, right? No, I'm not talking about the YouTube channel that posts aesthetic films set to sad music. I'm talking about the movie that the channel is likely named after. Park Chan-wook's I'm a Cyborg, but that's okay. Wook being one of South Korea's most prolific filmmakers makes it kind of perfect for re-release, especially following his most famous work, Oldboy, getting a similar wide re-release a few years ago and eventually making its way to Netflix. So why not put his bizarre rom-com about a girl who thinks she's a robot falling in love with a mental patient on streaming services? What could go wrong? I mean, clips of it just seem strange, but considering that it was made by Park Chan-wook, it must have some grace as well to back up that bizarre nature. So hopefully it gets some grace with a re-release. Okay, so I said I wouldn't do entirely all Japanese shit, but this one kinda counts. This is a kinda Japanese movie, but because it's a joint Indian-Japanese production. And it finds a sweet spot between those two countries by being equal parts Japanese anime and Indian national epic, called Ramayana, The Legend of Prince Rama, which was a joint production to celebrate the friendship between India and Japan on the 70th anniversary of their established diplomacy back in 1993. Since then, it has gone and been unreleased on modern formats and theaters. That is, until now. I think this has gathered some hype in social media, and that's how I first learned about it. I saw it on Twitter, back when I had Twitter. And now, as of this year, it is getting toured around all these different theaters. So what I'm hoping that this will lead to, that this fantastical story makes its way into some sort of physical release, as well as a result of them touring the film around the country. Hopefully. Alright, fuck it. I'm in this video on another Japanese filmmaker who I think needs their shit re-released in the West. Or just released in general in the West. Yes, another one. I know, Japanese film is pretty overrepresented in this list, but it's my list. I don't care. But this one I have such an intense passion for that I couldn't deny it a spot on my list. I'm picking someone I desperately need to see more films from, and that is the late great Nobuhiko Obayashi. Obayashi is most famous for House, which in recent years has developed a cult following from film nerds like myself. The film is very indicative of Obayashi's style, and Obayashi's flair for madcap horror hijinks, creative and bizarre choices in direction, and a kick-ass soundtrack. A style that I think is able to transcend the horror genre and make some entertaining films no matter the genre. I remember being thoroughly in love with the soundtrack for this movie for House in high school, and finally being able to watch it in college, and now I've just fell in love with it as a whole. In turn, it has made me want to scavenge for all of Obayashi's films, all the ones that I could find on the internet at least. Through places like YouTube and archive.org, I've found some, and now some of his recent films have made their way onto streaming services, but it's not enough. So at this point, I'm pleading with the people at Arrow, at Criterion, and even at Vinegar Syndrome, someone, please, that if you re-release any films on this list, let it be one from Nobuhiko Obayashi. Really, honestly, I'd like to see him get a whole box set of stuff. I'd buy it. I'd gladly fork over wads of cash for that shit. However, if you can't, for some reason, get the whole box set or license for all of them, here's my top picks just for if you were to bring over a few of his films. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, His Motorbike, Her Island, School Between the Crosshairs, The Island Closest to Heaven, and The Discarnates. Please, at this point, I'm actually begging. I want that so bad. Movies are impossible to keep in perfect condition, but with preservation today, it has made films from years ago still look brand new. Although the undertaking to do so is quite impossible. But hopefully, with the films that I mentioned before, we can at least get a good start. If not, we're just gonna be stuck watching The Gray Man and the rest of the gray goop that Netflix produces these days. Even though it won't replace Netflix films, older films and films from around the world provide a necessary alternative to it. They give unique insights into the lives of people from different time periods or from different places from around the world. At the very least, they can entertain us and show us something we would never otherwise see. So that's why I want these movies brought back and made widely available. But what do you think? Are there any films that you'd like to see brought back and given a good restoration? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you later.